A mother sat across from me with her hands folded so tightly the knuckles had gone white. She had not slept. I could see it in the gray under her eyes, in the way she kept glancing toward the door as if something might follow her in. Her little boy was 5. For 3 months, he had woken every night at the same hour, screaming about a man in the corner of his room, a man who told him things, a man only he could see. She had done what any good mother does. She checked under the bed. She left the light on. She prayed the way she half remembered praying as a girl. And still, every night, the screaming, the pediatrician said night terrors. The counselor said anxiety. Nobody asked about the room. Nobody asked what was in it. She came to me because a friend whispered my name to her in a parking lot, the way people whisper these things now, ashamed, as if asking a priest for help were the strange thing and not the man in the corner. She told me the boy had stopped eating. She told me he had started speaking in a voice that was not his. And then she said the sentence that I have heard in some form 100 times. She said, "I think there is something in his room, and I do not know how it got there." She was right. There was. And she had carried it in herself with her own 2 hands, wrapped as a gift. She just did not know it yet. My name is Chad Ripperger. I am a Catholic priest. I was trained formally in the ministry of exorcism, and I have spent the better part of my life in the places most people would rather not look. The confessional, where the real damage is confessed in a whisper. The bedsides of the dying, where the masks finally come off. And the homes, the ordinary homes with the minivan in the driveway and the cereal bowls in the sink, where a family discovers that the war the church has always spoken of is not an abstraction, it is happening in the next room. I am not here to frighten you. I want you to hear that plainly, because what I am going to tell you tonight concerns your children, and a frightened parent makes bad decisions. I am here to do the opposite. I am here to hand you back something that was taken from your grandparents and never given to you. Authority. The plain spiritual authority that God gives to a mother and a father over the souls placed in their care. You have more of it than you know. You have simply never been told. So sit with me for a while. Let me show you what I have seen and what to do about it. So let me tell you about the boy. I will change the details because I always do. The case I am describing is a composite woven from many families I have sat with over the years, and no single child or city is named, both to protect the innocent and because the pattern matters more than the particulars. The pattern is what saves children. The particulars only satisfy curiosity. So here the pattern: a boy of 5, a good family by every outward measure, Mass on Sundays, more or less, grace before dinner when they remembered. The father traveled for work. The mother held the house together with the quiet competence that mothers do. And the boy, who had always slept like a stone, began to wake, not crying the way children cry, screaming, sitting bolt upright, eyes open, fixed on the same corner of the room every single night. The hour was almost always the same, somewhere between 3 and 4 in the morning. The hour the old monks called the hour of the wolf, the dead middle of the night when the body is at its lowest and the soul is least defended. I have learned to ask about the hour. People think I am being strange when I ask. I am not. The enemy keeps a schedule because the enemy is a creature of order turned to ruin, and order leaves fingerprints. The mother told me the boy described a man, tall, standing in the corner. The man did not always speak. For 400 years, the church provided the laity with specific prayers to address situations in their homes that they could not explain. Most parishes stopped teaching them after 1965. Now, they have all been compiled into a concise, practical guide. Keep it near the door and read the first page tonight. You will find the link to get the book in the description and in the first pinned comment. But when he did, the boy repeated things no 5-year-old should know. Words he had not learned. Names of people long dead in that family, people the boy had never met, never been told about. She told me he would describe what the man was wearing the same every night, and that the description never changed. Children invent. I know that. A child's monster grows fur one night and scales the next, because a child's fear is a moving thing. This did not move. It had the fixedness of something real. The mother had done everything a loving parent would do. She moved his bed to the other side of the room. She bought a softer nightlight, then a brighter one, then turned on every light in the house. She read to him longer. She prayed over him the only prayers she remembered. She let him sleep in her room, and when she did, he slept, and she lay awake instead, feeling watched. That detail mattered to me, because the disturbance was following the boy, not the room. And yet, it had a home base. It lived in that bedroom, and it grew quiet when he left it, the way a dog stays near the spot where it is fed. I asked her to do something simple. I asked her to walk me through the room. Not in person, not yet. Just describe it, slowly, corner by corner, as if she were standing in the doorway looking in. The bed, the window, the closet, the shelf with his books, the basket of toys, the decorations she had hung on the walls to make it cheerful for him. And as she talked, I listened. Not for anything dramatic. I listened for the thing that did not belong, the one note that was off in an otherwise ordinary room. Because in my experience, and I will say this carefully, when a child's nights turn dark in the particular way she was describing, there is very often an object in the room. Not always. I want to be honest with you, because honesty is the only thing that makes a priest worth listening to, and there's a great deal of dishonesty in this subject in both directions. Not every nightmare is a demon. Most are not. Most are nothing of the kind. Children have fevers and growing pains and fears they cannot name and imaginations that run hot in the dark. A child who has watched something frightening before bed will dream of it. A child under stress, a move, a new sibling, a tension between his parents he can feel but not understand, will carry that stress into the night. A good doctor and a calm, predictable bedtime do more for the ordinary frightened child than any prayer of deliverance ever will. I have sent far more families to the pediatrician than to the exorcist, and I will go on doing it without apology, because the worst thing a man in my position can do is to teach frightened parents to see a devil behind every bad dream. That is its own kind of harm. But sometimes the doctor finds nothing, and the calm bedtime changes nothing, and the disturbance has that fixed, patient, repeating quality, and there is an object in the room. And when there is, it changes everything. This is the promise I am making to you, and I will keep it before this is over. I am going to tell you the specific kind of thing that does not belong in a child's bedroom. The thing that, in case after case, sits at the center of the disturbance like a stone at the bottom of a still pool. And then I am going to tell you exactly what to put in its place so that you are not left standing afraid in an empty room, which helps no one. Remove and then install. Strip out the door and then post the guard. That is the whole shape of it. But first you have... St. Thomas Aquinas wrote more than a dozen questions on how fallen angels operate. Most Catholics have never read one line of it. This archive gathers that teaching, the 1,614 rite, and 4 centuries of documented cases into a single reference. Read it slowly, 1 chapter a night. You will find the link to get the book in the description and in the first posted comment. You have to understand why an object can matter at all. Because if you do not understand the why, you will either ignore the warning or you will overreact to it. And both are mistakes. I know how it sounds. I know that to the modern ear, the idea that a toy or a trinket could open a door to something dark sounds like superstition, like a relic of a frightened age we have congratulated ourselves on leaving behind. We have not left it behind. We have only forgotten it. And forgetting a danger is not the same as being safe from it. The man who forgets the cliff is in more danger on it, not less. Let me tell you how an object becomes a door, because this is the part that the modern world has trained you to dismiss, and it is precisely the part you cannot afford to dismiss. The church has always taught that the demonic operates by permission. Hold on to that word, permission. The enemy is a creature, not a God. He was made good and he fell, and even in his ruin he remains a creature, bound by the order of the one who made him. He has no rights over you, over your home, over your child, none at all. He is a trespasser, and a trespasser, to do his work, needs a way in. He looks for what the moral theologians call a foothold, a point of entry, a kind of legal claim, however small, that gives his presence a covering it would not otherwise have. Sin can be such a foothold. Habitual, unrepented sin in a home is an open window. The occult is another older and more direct one, and it is named explicitly in the Word of God. Open the book of Deuteronomy, the 18th chapter, the 10th and 11th verses. Let there not be found among you anyone who practices divination, or a soothsayer, or an interpreter of omens, or a sorcerer, or a charmer, or one who consults ghosts and spirits, or who seeks oracles from the dead. Read that list slowly. Read it twice. It is not a list of quaint customs that God found distasteful. It is a list of doorways, each one named. Divination, the prying into the future by forbidden means. The consultation of spirits, the seeking of knowledge from the dead. The reaching out through an object or a ritual toward a power that does not come from God and therefore comes from somewhere else. The text calls these things an abomination, and the word is severe on purpose and not because God is jealous of his prerogatives like a small and petty king. He is severe because he is a father, and he has seen what these doors lead to. A father who fences off the edge of the cliff and speaks sharply about it is not being cruel to his children. He has looked over the edge. He knows what is at the bottom. Now hear me carefully, because the world has taught your children to treat this whole subject as a game, and that is exactly the disguise that makes it dangerous. A child does not need to understand the occult for an object of the occult to function as a foothold. Let me say that again, because everything turns on it. The child does not need to believe in it, does not need to intend anything by it, does not need to comprehend a single thing about what the object is for. Children are not little adults. They are persons, fully and completely, with immortal souls of infinite worth. But they are persons under formation, persons not yet in possession of their own reason and will, persons under authority. And here's the truth that the modern world has labored with real determination to make you forget your child is under your spiritual authority. Not the states, not the schools, not the entertainment company that designed and sold the thing now sitting on his shelf, yours. A mother and a father stand by the very design of God and not by any human arrangement as the spiritual head of the home and the appointed guardians of the souls within it. This is not a sentimental idea, a greeting card notion of parenthood. It is a real authority with real spiritual force behind it, in the same way that a king has real authority over his land and not merely a fond feeling about it. What you permit in your home, you have permitted. What you place under blessing, you have blessed. And what you carry across your own threshold, you bring in under your covering, either for protection or for harm. When parents knew this, they acted on it. They guarded the threshold. They blessed the house. They blessed the rooms, one by one. A priest came and blessed the home when a family first moved in, and that was simply expected, a thing you did, like turning on the water. The father blessed his children's foreheads at night with holy water before they slept. A crucifix hung over every bed as a matter of course in every room, not as decoration, but as a sentry posted at the head of the sleeper. That world is mostly gone now. The sentries were taken down, and into the empty space, other things have moved. So consider what now fills a child's room. I am not speaking of a fairy tale or a wooden train or a stuffed animal worn soft from being loved. I am speaking of a specific and identifiable category, one that has saturated children's media and merchandise in our particular time in a way that would have been unthinkable to your great-grandparents. Toys and games built around divination, around fortune-telling, around speaking with the dead, boards and cards, and now applications on a screen that promise, in cheerful packaging, to contact spirits or reveal the future, all of it aimed squarely at the young because the young are the easiest sale and the least defended. Dolls and figures tied to spiritist practices, drained of their meaning and sold as merely cute. Decorative objects covered in occult symbols that the parents do not recognize, but that the people who designed them recognize perfectly well. and the broad, formless, smiling spirituality of the New Age, repackaged for the nursery and the playroom, crystals presented to children as objects with powers of their own. Charms and amulets that promise protection, but protection from what and by whom and at what price. Little shrines and altars to nothing in particular, which is to say, altars to something the child cannot name. I've walked into children's rooms and seen an entire wall of these things, hung with genuine love by a parent who believed they were buying wonder and whimsy for their son or daughter, and who had no idea, none whatsoever, that they were furnishing a doorway. And I want to be precise here, because precision is mercy in this work. The object itself need not be dramatic. It need not glow or move or whisper in the dark. Most of them sit there looking like ordinary merchandise. What makes a thing a foothold is not its appearance and not its price. It is its purpose. An object whose entire reason for existing is to reach toward the spiritual world along a road God has explicitly forbidden is, by its nature, an invitation, whether or not anyone present knows the language it is written in, not the plastic, the purpose. Remember that, and you will never be fooled by how harmless a thing looks. St. Thomas Aquinas, on whom I lean, because no one in the history of the church has thought about these matters with greater clarity or greater calm, teaches that the demons are pure spirits, created good, immensely intelligent, and now wholly bent upon the ruin of souls. Understand what that means. They are not equal and opposite to God. They are not a dark power balancing a light one. That is a pagan idea, not a Christian one. They are creatures, fallen and infinitely beneath the one who made them. But they are far above us in natural intelligence, and they are patient in a way we can scarcely imagine, and they are observant. Aquinas is clear that they cannot read your thoughts directly. The secret interior of your heart belongs to God alone, and they are not present everywhere at once as God is. They are limited. But they study us. They watch what we do, what we say, what we bring into our homes and hang on our walls, and they work through whatever's offered to them. When a person, even a child, even in total innocence, makes use of an object dedicated to divination or to the spirits, that object becomes a kind of signpost, a marker the enemy can point to and say, in effect, here, this was brought in, this was permitted, I have a reason to be here. I do not claim, and I want to be careful, that every such object is occupied or infested. That would be foolish and it would be untrue. Most are not. What I claim is narrower and surer. These objects function as openings. And openings in the room of a small child, a child who cannot defend himself, who has not yet the reason or the will to renounce anything in the name of God, who cannot make the sign of the cross with understanding, are a grave matter. The child has done nothing wrong. He cannot have done anything wrong. That is exactly why the whole weight of the responsibility falls upon the parent and nowhere else. The parent is the gatekeeper. The parent is the one who holds the keys. The child is only sleeping. The mother on the other side of my desk was crying now, very quietly, the way people cry when something they have refused to see is finally coming into focus. I asked her again about the wall, the decorations, the things she had hung to make the room feel magical for her boy, and she went still. There was, she said slowly, a gift. Something a relative had brought back from a trip abroad. A decorative thing, she called it, reaching for the word. Pretty. Foreign, covered in symbols she did not understand but found beautiful. And so she had hung it directly over his bed because it caught the morning light in a way she liked. She had been so pleased with it. It had felt special. And then she stopped, and I watched the arithmetic happen behind her eyes. And she said, very low, that the screaming had begun the same week she put it up. The same week. She had never once connected the two things. Why on earth would she? No one in her entire life had ever told her that a wall could have a door in it, or that a gift could be a key. Here's the turn, and I want you to sit inside it for a moment, because this is the part that gives hope and not fear, and the order of those two words matters. I told her to take it down. That was the whole of my instruction at first. Take it down today, before nightfall, and do not put it in a drawer, and do not put it in the closet, and do not give it to a neighbor. Remove it from the house entirely. Some things are not to be kept and not to be passed along. She did it that same afternoon. She told me afterward that her hand shook as she lifted it off the wall, that she could not have said why, and that in the moment it crossed the threshold of the front door and out of her home, she felt the air of the house change, as though a window she had not known was open had quietly been shut. She could not explain it, and she did not try to. Then I asked her to bring in the parish priest, the one near her, to come and bless the room properly with the old blessing slowly, and to bless the whole house while he was there, every room, every threshold, every window, not just the boys. I asked her to obtain holy water from the parish and to use it, to bless the boy's forehead with it every single night, tracing the sign of the cross on him as he lay down, and to have the father do it whenever he was home, because the father, as the head of the household, blesses with the authority of his office and not merely as an individual man. I asked her to hang a blessed crucifix over the bed in the very place where the other thing had hung, so that the spot that had been a door became the spot that bore the cross. I asked her to put an image of Our Lady on the wall where the boy could see it as he fell asleep, so that the last thing his eyes rested on was the face of his mother in heaven. And then I asked her to do the thing that matters more than all the rest of it combined, to consecrate her son, to give him deliberately, aloud, by name, to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, not as a warm feeling, not as a hope, as a transfer of ownership, plainly stated. This child is yours. I give him to you. I place him under your protection, and I take him out from under every other claim. The screaming stopped within days. I am not promising you that it always moves that quickly, and I will say so as many times as I need to, because there are men who will sell you a formula and a guaranteed result, and they are charlatans, and they do real harm. The removal of an object is not a magic spell run backward. It is the closing of a door, no more and no less. And a closed door is not the same as a filled house. The soul of that child still needed and needs to be filled with what is good and true and holy, and that is the work of years, the patient work of a Christian family, not the work of a single afternoon with a priest on the telephone. But in case after case after case, across more families than I can number, I have watched the same sequence unfold. The object leaves the home. The room is blessed. The child is given to the Sacred Heart and the Immaculate Heart, and the nights go quiet. That is what happened here. The boy began to eat again within the week. The voice that was not his voice was not heard again. He slept through the night and then through the next, and the terror that had ruled that house for 3 months simply lifted like a fever breaking. And the last time I spoke with that mother, she told me something I have never forgotten. She told me that her son had asked her entirely on his own, please not to take the crucifix down, ever, because he said it made him feel safe. A 5-year-old does not say that about a piece of carved metal and wood. He does not form an attachment to a decoration. He says it about a presence. He had come to trust something, and he was right to trust it. So what does all of this mean for you, sitting wherever you are sitting, perhaps glancing now toward a closed door at the end of a hallway? It means, first and most importantly, that the protection of your child is not a matter of luck, and it is not a matter of whether you are holy enough, or frightened enough, or worthy enough. None of that. It is a matter of using the weapons that Christ himself left to his church, weapons that are already in your hands, that you have already been given, that cost you nothing but your attention and your willingness to use them. Let me name them plainly, the way I would name them to that mother if she were across the desk from me right now. Begin with the sacraments, because they are the wellspring and everything else flows out from them. Confession, and I name it first, and I name it for the parents above all. When the Lord rose and breathed upon his apostles and said to them, whose sins you forgive are forgiven them, and whose sins you retain are retained, he was not speaking in poetry or pious metaphor. He was placing into the hands of his church a real and shocking power to cleanse a real and wounded soul. A parent who lives in the state of grace is a parent who has authority. The enemy cannot easily contest because the enemy has no purchase on a soul that belongs wholly to God. And understand this, because it is not commonly taught anymore. A home is covered in great part by the spiritual condition of the parents who lead it. Your soul is part of your child's defense. Then the Eucharist, the true body and blood and soul and divinity of the Lord himself, received worthily and received often, because there is simply nothing stronger in all of creation than Christ dwelling bodily within a person. And a family whose life is built around the Eucharist is a family living behind a rampart the enemy detests and approaches only with difficulty. And then the sacramentals, which are the everyday armor of the Christian household, given to us by the Church for precisely the kind of moment that Mother found herself in. Holy water, blessed by a priest, kept in the home in a font by the door or bottle in a drawer, and actually used, not merely owned, used at the threshold. Used on the foreheads of the children at night, used in the four corners of a room that has known disturbance. It is not a charm and it is not a potion. It carries the prayer of the whole Church and the authority of the one in whose name it was blessed. A blessed crucifix in every bedroom, hung over every bed, because the cross is the sign before which the enemy suffered his total defeat and which he therefore cannot bear to look upon. An image of Our Lady on the wall, because the enemy fears the Mother of God with a particular and bitter dread that the modern Catholic has been allowed to forget and that the old Catholic never forgot for a moment. And for the child himself, the brown scapular, blessed and placed upon him, an ancient and tender pledge of her maternal protection worn against the heart. These things are not curiosities of a credulous past that we have outgrown. They are instruments ordained by the Church and charged with her prayer, and the reason they have fallen into disuse is not that they cease to work, it is that we cease to use them. We put down our weapons in peacetime and have been surprised to find ourselves unarmed in a war. And over all of it, presiding over all of it, consecration, the deliberate spoken giving of the child to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. You cannot stand guard over your child every hour of every night. You will sleep, you will be at work or ill or simply in another room. But the Sacred Heart never sleeps, and the Immaculate Heart never once looks away. And a child placed into those two hands is kept under a watch that does not end and cannot be deceived. You may well be asking why this is happening now. Why so many children in so many ordinary homes in our particular generation. Why a question that my own grandparents would have found nearly unintelligible has become a real and pressing trouble for decent church-going families who are doing their best. I will tell you, and I will tell you without softening it, because you deserve a true diagnosis and not a comforting evasion that leaves you defenseless. It is happening now because the doors have been multiplied and the guards have been sent home. Look honestly at what is manufactured for children today. The occult is no longer hidden away in the shadowed corners of the culture, whispered about, kept from the young. It has become the cheerful theme of the cartoon, the central mechanic of the game, the entire aesthetic of the toy aisle. Divination, the summoning of spirits, the casting of spells, the consultation of the dead, all of it brightened, softened, made adorable, and sold to children as harmless wonder and pretend. And a whole generation of parents who were themselves never taught to recognize any of it cannot possibly warn their children against what they cannot see. This is the heart of it, and I have said it before and I will keep saying it. The enemy has stopped bothering to hide because there is no longer anyone standing at the door to notice him come in. He hid when the house was guarded. He does not trouble to hide from an empty post. And at the very same time, by the same long process, the protections were quietly taken apart. The blessing of the home, once perfectly ordinary, became a rarity that most Catholics have never once requested. The family rosary, which for centuries was the very spine of the Catholic evening, fell silent in the great majority of houses. The crucifix came down off the bedroom wall and was replaced by a poster. The holy water font by the front door went dry and then was thrown away. In the decades that followed the great upheavals after the council that closed in 1965, an enormous portion of the practical, protective, handed down faith of ordinary people was simply set down and not picked back up. Now, I want to be precise and just because I am a priest of the church and I love her and I will not slander her. It was not the doctrine that was lost. The doctrine stands unchanged, whole, exactly as it always was. What was lost was the daily practice, the blessings, the use of the sacramentals, the plain catechesis that once told a young mother, as a matter of course, why a crucifix belonged over her child's bed and what holy water was for. 2 full generations grew up without any of it, never taught. And now those very generations are themselves the parents, furnishing their children's rooms with real love and no knowledge, with no idea at all what belongs in that room and what must never be allowed in it. This is not the personal fault of any individual mother or father. I want that to be heard clearly. It is the result of an entire infrastructure of protection that was dismantled piece by piece over decades until the average Catholic family was left standing out in the open, exposed, and did not even know that it was exposed. I do not tell you this to lay blame on the church I serve and would die for. I tell you so that you understand the ground you are actually standing on, and so that you stop holding yourself guilty for failing to know a thing that no one ever troubled to teach you. The ignorance was inflicted. The remedy's in your hands now. So let me be entirely practical. Because hope without a plan is only a feeling, and you did not come to me for a feeling. Here is what to do this week in plain order. First, go into your child's room and take an honest inventory. In the daylight, calmly, look at the toys, the games, the cards, the screens, the decorations, the things hung on the walls and the things pushed under the bed and forgotten. Take each thing in your hand and ask of it one simple question. What is this for? What does it exist to do? If the honest answer touches divination, fortune-telling, the contacting of spirits, the casting of spells, or the symbols and trappings of the occult and the New Age, then take it out. Not into a closet, not into the attic, out of the house. Some things are meant to be discarded and not stored and not handed on to someone else. Do this with a steady hand, not in a panic, and never in front of a frightened child, because you are not a victim fleeing a threat. You are the gatekeeper of that home, exercising the authority God gave you. Act like it. Second, have the room blessed and the whole home along with it. Telephone your parish priest and ask him plainly for the blessing of a home. It is an ancient rite of the faithful. It asks nothing extraordinary of him, and most priests are genuinely glad to be asked because they are asked so seldom. Third, install the guard you stripped the door of. Holy water in the home and the sign of the cross traced with it on your child's forehead each and every night. A blessed crucifix on the wall over the bed, an image of Our Lady where the child can see it. The brown scapular blessed and placed upon the child. Replace the door with the cross. Fourth, consecrate your child out loud and by name to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and then renew that consecration. Make it a habit and not a single ceremony you perform once and forget. Fifth, pray together as a family. Begin the family rosary, even a single decade of it, even clumsily, even with the smallest ones squirming and complaining on the floor. A family that kneels and prays together has raised a wall around itself that the enemy is forced to reckon with, and there is no substitute for it. Sixth, go to confession, you the parents first and soon, and bring your children to the sacraments as they come of age for them. And last, if the disturbance is genuine and it persists after all of this, do not go hunting for a cure on the internet, and do not, under any circumstances, attempt rituals or prayers of deliverance you have read about online and do not understand. That is how people make a bad situation far worse. Find a sound, faithful, Orthodox priest. Find a good spiritual director who knows this terrain, and let the church do the work the church was built across 2,000 years to do. Order matters in the spiritual life as much as it matters anywhere else. Go in through the door God built, and do not climb in through a window of your own devising. I want to leave you with hope, deliberately, at the end. because despair is the enemy's second weapon, the one he reaches for when the first has failed. And he uses it on parents more freely and more cruelly than on almost anyone else. So hear this, and hear it clearly. You are not powerless. Your child is not lost. And the darkness you are afraid of is, in the end, a defeated thing, trembling and snarling at the edge of a war that was decided against it long ago on a hill outside Jerusalem. The Lord did not leave his children unguarded in the dark. He gave them his own mother, whose heel is set upon the head of the serpent. He gave them the holy angels. And I tell you plainly that your child has a guardian angel standing watch over him at this very moment, a being of immense power, appointed by God to the keeping of that one small soul and to no other task. And he gave them his church with the whole of her armory, all her sacraments, all her unglamorous and ancient and completely effective armor, free for the asking. The truth is never once depended on the numbers, and you must not let the loneliness of doing this frighten you. Athanasius stood nearly alone against the entire world, contra mundum, against the world. And the truth that one man held when almost everyone else had let it fall is the very same truth we are holding here tonight. One faithful parent on her knees with holy water in her hand and her child given over to the Sacred Heart is a power the enemy cannot break and has never been able to break. So do not be afraid. Take the thing off the wall, hang the cross where it was, bless the room. Give the child to the one who loves him more than you do, and learn slowly to believe that last part, because it is the truest thing in the world and the hardest for a parent to accept. Choose Christ. Choose his church. Choose his sacraments. Choose his mother. Choose the cross, and do not look back. In the next video, I will tell you about the one prayer the church places in the hands of parents that the enemy fears above all the others. The prayer that sets your entire household under a covering by name, and why almost no Catholic family alive today still prays it.